Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob. And look, our set has moved to an entirely new location. Can't you tell? Well, it has. I swear, I don't know what to tell you folks. But anyways, the thing that I want to be talking about today is Trump. So a lot of people ask me, Eli, you're supposed to be Eli, the computer guy. Why do you keep talking about politics all the time? Eli, we come here for technology. And one of the things I keep trying to explain to folks is in the modern world, politics and technology basically go together hand in hand. To understand what's going on with the tech industry, you need to go understand what's going on with the political environment, especially now with the Trump administration, right? Trump gets all cracked out on his Diet Coke at midnight, and he comes out with proclamations that literally change everything. And we all have to figure out what we are going to do in this new world that he's creating, because the GOP, the Republican Congress people, have basically turned into welfare queens and frankly refuse to do their damn jobs, right? I don't mind the whole concept of isolationism versus globalization or that type of thing. My problem is that the Republicans have basically just stopped doing their jobs, right? They coffee badge. They come in, they badge for their coffee, they get their fucking paycheck that we as taxpayers are paying for, and then they go the hell home and let Trump do whatever the hell it is that he's decided to do this particular day. And the latest thing he has just decided that he's going to do, this is not going through the legislative process or anything like that, is he's decided that we are going to start charging H1B visas $100,000 a pop, right? If you're a company, if you're Amazon, Google, or whoever else, you want to bring in an H1B visa, it is going to cost $100,000 just to get them in the country. From CNBC, everybody else, big tech companies, foreign governments scramble after Trump slaps a $100,000 fee on H1B visas. And again, the important thing to understand here is this is not going through the legislative process, right? The GOP Congress people, the Republican Congress people, right, are on their backs pissing on themselves, wanting everybody to know that they're good little dogs. Pat them on the stomach and tell them they're alpha dogs because they're not actually doing their jobs at all. Trump is just doing whatever it is he apparently wants to do. And so this is one of the big things that's come up, is the whole question of if we're going to make America great again, what about the H1B visas, right? We've been hearing a lot of people scream about H1B visas, and basically these are visas that are supposed to be for high-skill employees. The limited is somewhere around 85,000 of these things per year, and the concept is that if companies cannot hire people of particular skill sets within the United States, they can go internationally and bring people in with these particular skill sets. The issue that comes in the technology world is that a lot of the technology companies bring in quite a few H1B visas. And the question then becomes, do they actually need the particular skill sets of these H1B visas, or are these employees that they're bringing in simply less expensive than hiring local Americans? And so a lot of Americans now have been complaining about H1B visas, and so Trump is going to do something about it. The thing to think about, though, with this is that up until this point, if you brought somebody in with an H1B visa, the fees were somewhere between like $1,000 to $1,500. So, it's $1,000, $1,500 to bring in somebody for an H-1B visa. And he now wants to jack that up to $100,000. So this is an important thing to be thinking about for my non-American viewers, right? So one of the big issues that I have is I'm an American. Love it, hate it, I don't care. It's who I am, right? I'm an American, and one of the problems that I get is I get a lot of non-Americans basically asking like how to get jobs, and especially how to get into the United States. Eli, I love America. I want to come to the United States and get a technology job, right? And one of the things that I've talked about for a long time, and this is before Trump, it has been basically all of my lifetime, is that our immigration process has been a complete and utter disaster. It's been a crap show. And one of the things I've I've talked about to a lot of my non-American viewers is the whole question of, do you actually still want to come to the United States legitimately, right? So if you go back 20 or 30 years ago, right, the difference between being in a second world or a third world country and being in some place like the United States was absolutely massive, right? If you were in particular countries out there, the fact of the matter is you could not get your hands on certain things. You might not be able to get good medical care. You might not be able to get good education. You might not be able to get air conditioners and HVAC systems and all this lovely stuff that we have in the United States and don't think about. But the curious thing that's happened over the years is that in many countries, in many places, if you make a decent amount of money, you can actually get access to most of the stuff that you can get in the first world, and you might actually get a better quality of products and service, right? So if you need healthcare, you can pay for good healthcare. You can pay for healthcare that might be better than ours. Might be better than ours. If you want good education, you can get your kids into a good educational program. If you want a nice, solid house with HVAC, as long as you're able to throw that money on the table, you can get a nice, solid house with HVAC. And one of the things I've been bringing up over the years is this whole question of, do you really want to come to the United States? Do you want to break from your community? Do you want to break from the relations that you have? Do you not want to see your parents and your relatives and all that type of thing for years at a time? Do you want to come to a country that is different? We are different. Or do you really just want to program or create robots and that type of thing? And wouldn't it be nice if you could have mama's home cooking? Whatever that home cooking seems to be, with a nice house, and your kids go to private school and you get health care and all that kind of thing. And so that's one of the things I've been talking about a lot for many years, is this whole question of, do non-Americans really, in fact, want to come to the United States? The other thing to be thinking about is when you think about making money, right? When you think about making money, really the place to make money is where countries go from being poor countries to being middle income countries, right? So in the United States right now, we make money. Anyways, trying to make, like, once you make like $100,000 a year, trying to have increases in that amount of money that's coming in is actually relatively difficult. The thing is, if you have a country where people are making $5,000 or $10,000 a year, it's much easier to double your money, right? Getting people from $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year is easier than getting people from $100,000 a year to $200,000 a year. So from an investment standpoint, investing in non-first world countries is actually a viable place to start thinking about things. The other thing too is think about like regulatory environments. So like autonomous drones. So in is it Rwanda? I think it's Rwanda. They have the Zips. So there's these aircraft called the Zips. Really cool. They're autonomous drones that have been running for at least 10 years now. And the reason is because in Rwanda, they had a lot of people that were dying because they needed blood transfusions or they needed emergency drugs and that type of thing. And they were out in clinics out in the bush. And the reality is the road system is crap, right? It's dirt roads that are incredibly difficult to get from point A to point B. So they had people dying. They had people dying every single day simply because you couldn't get this much of a quantity of something from point A to point B. And so they looked at it. So the Zips, these autonomous aircraft, came in and they said, well, an autonomous aircraft might fall out of the sky and it might hit and might kill somebody, which is a bad thing. On the other hand, we have people dying every single day because they can't get access to blood and drugs and those types of things. And so they looked at their options, they did their risk analysis, and they said, we are willing to risk a Zip falling out of the sky and smacking somebody in the head and killing them in return for being able to save all of these people every single day. And so they've had these Zips, these autonomous aircraft. They get launched, they go over the clinic, they literally parachute out the product, whether it's plasma or blood or whatever else, and then the Zip returns to where it came from. And this has been running for years and years and years, right? The FAA here in the United States has been a complete and utter disaster as far as authorizing the utilization of autonomous drones, where in Rwanda, at this point, it is old school. And so that's one of the things that I bring up a lot for a lot of non-American viewers, non-American followers, is this whole question of, Seriously, is the United States the best place to go in 2025 for your career? And I think for a lot of people, they might actually realize that it's probably not. And that's where I get concerned with things like these $100,000 fees for H-1B visas, is basically this is telling more and more non-Americans to stay the hell away. Ours is ours, get the F out. And the problem that we come into is if we look at industrialization, if we look at technological improvement, the reality is this is just skill sets. This is just evolutionary skill sets. People figure out how to do something and they get better and better and better and better and better doing it. And it becomes easier for other people to do and other people to replicate. And so the United States has had a nice position for many years because we were able to scale up relatively quickly. But as we're seeing, right, you can build factories in China, obviously. You can build factories in Cambodia. You can build factories in Vietnam and India and South Africa and South America and the whole nine yards. You can have coders in Botswana. You can have coders in Cambodia. I think the interesting thing that we're starting to see is that the modern world, modern technology, the concept of modern technology is becoming ever more commoditized at a point in time where the politicians here in the United States, again, with the supremacist mindset, with the idea that we are in fact superior, right? Because we are superior, we will always remain superior no matter what we do. And so the idea is that we are superior. We can say you're not allowed to have these things that we have, with the idea that the rest of the world will just capitulate and they won't progress their civilizations any further, which, as I've been arguing for a long time, is dumb. It is so dumb, but it is true. So anyways, here with the H-1B visas for $100,000, major technology companies and foreign governments are rushing to respond after President Donald Trump late Friday announced plans to impose a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas, threatening to upend the program that underpins America's technology workforce. And again, whether you like H-1B visas or not, the important thing to understand is a lot of them are used. 85,000 of them are used in the United States. Many of them are in the large technology companies, and the access to this labor, as with many things that Trump does, is going to get ripped away in the blink of an eye. This is not a process. This is not a process that says this year it'll be $10,000, the next year it'll be $30,000. This is not over 10 years we're going to scale to a $100,000 cost, which would be a sane way of doing it, which is not the thing that our president does, right? Our president is a television president, right? He needs something big and flashy to put on the screen, regardless of the economic cost, regardless of the damage that it's going to do to our civilization. All that matters is that he can get the pomp and circumstance, right? And so very quickly, it is going to go from $1,000 to get these folks to $100,000. Now think about this. If you're a company, and all of a sudden you have to pay $100,000, right? We talk about that with options. So one of the big things, the concepts is that we're supposed to be trying to bring more manufacturing, more industrialization back into the United States, right? That we're supposed to be doing all of this reshoring. Well, one of the things to think about, if you can bring in foreign workers for $1,500 a nominal fee, then it makes a lot of sense to bring them into the United States and try to build what you're doing here. Once you have to start spending $100,000 a pop, doesn't it make more financial sense to start creating more satellite campuses? If it's going to cost me $100,000 to bring a single H-1B visa in, doesn't it start to make more sense to start renting more office space in Vietnam, Cambodia, India, Bangladesh, or whatever else, and actually start bringing the people into those offices? Because if you bring them into those offices, and then you connect a fiber line between those offices and the home office, you don't have to spend $100,000 a pop, right? 10 employees would be $1 million. I do believe that with Amazon, we'll go into this, Amazon has 14,000 H-1B visas. 14,000. If you have to spend $100,000 times 14,000, I'm an MCSE, not a computer scientist. I know that's a lot of money. I'm not sure how much money that is. That's a lot of money. Doesn't it start to make sense to start building more international offices? And I think that's the curious thing that we're seeing with the Trump administration. Whatever the whole MAGA crap is, Make America Great, whatever. Whatever that garbage is, what it seems like is all of these policies are specifically designed to force the rest of the world to start pushing development and to start ignoring the United States. And this is an important thing to be thinking about if you're a non-American technology worker. Is America really the place you want to shackle yourself to? And I really, honestly, as an American, question it, right? The fee would apply to new H-1B applicants, not renewals or current visa holders. So that was one of the big things. Again, this coming out as an executive order. This has not gone through the legislative process. It's important to understand the welfare queens in Congress cannot be bothered to do their jobs. The white, old, lazy men in Congress cannot be bothered to wake up in the morning and actually do their jobs to pass legislation. This is not going through the legislative process. This is simply by decree by the baby king that we currently have. And so that's one of the big things that with this, right? If it went through the legislative process, there'd be arguments, there'd be deliberations, there'd be debates, there'd be votes. By the end of the process, you will get an idea of what the hell is going on. No, he comes out Friday with an executive order and says, everybody's gonna have to pay $100,000. And the big issue is, right, the uncertainty for these businesses is they weren't sure what that meant, right? There were a lot of these corporations that told their employees to come home immediately, right? The question is if you already had an H-1B visa, but maybe you were going home to visit your family or you were on a vacation out of the US or that type of thing, they weren't sure if simply to get back in the United States, even though you already have the H-1B visa, you'd have to be charged $100,000. So they told everybody to come home immediately because the large corporations had no idea how this H-1B visa program would actually work, right? They're literally telling their employees, do not leave the United States because we do not know if we will be able to get you back in. That's one of the big issues here, right? And I've talked about this for a while. I've talked about this for many years, right? You do not need good tax policy. You do not need good regulatory policy, but you need stable tax and regulatory policy. If I know what the policies are, I can try to plan for that. No matter how horrible they are, right? I can do the profit loss. I can do some statistics. I can figure out how I'm going to make my business successful, right? As long as they're stable. When you have a senile old loser in the White House that is passing decrees, not legislation, the issue is for all of these companies, they have no idea what is going to happen tomorrow, and the price tag might be severe, right? If it costs $1,500 for an H-1B visa and he comes out and says, we're gonna double that, that's real. Like to go from $1,500 to $3,000 per person times 14,000, right? That's real money. That is real money, and that causes real uncertainty. But let's face it, most of these large corporations can deal with it. When you go from $1,000, $1,500 for an H-1B visa to $100,000 for an H-1B visa, like even the Amazons of the world are probably not quite sure how to balance that particular budget. And it is happening with such immediacy. And this is where I talk about, right? If you want to understand how to solve problems, if you want to understand better how the different tech stacks work and all that kind of stuff, I can sit down with you and I can discuss those things. Right now with this whole thing about, Eli, how do I get a job? I don't know right now, right? I want you to fully understand how batshit crazy insane our economy currently is, and the fact that nobody in Congress, nobody in our government seems to want to take actual responsibility to try to come up with sane policies. Right? Just because Tim Cook is on his knees slobbering over Trump's ring, just because, Zuckerberg's out there like, thank God we have an alpha dog in the White House, right? Just because they're saying those things does not mean factually on the ground the economy is doing well. Let's see here. So not renewals or current visa holders, according to a White House official. A White House official. It could change tomorrow because remember, this is diktat, not legislation. It will first apply in the upcoming lottery cycle, and it does not apply to 2025 lottery winners. So if you got in 2025, you should be good. The person said. Maybe, unless Trump disagrees with him. The White House also clarified that the new $100,000 fee is not an annual charge as previously reported by several media outlets. So it's a one-time fee. So, I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. The move could deal a massive blow to companies, primarily in the technology and financial sectors, that rely heavily on highly skilled immigrants, particularly from India and China. Amazon employed the most H1B visa holders, more than 14,000 as the end of June. Microsoft, Meta, Apple, and Google had over 4,000 such visas each, among the top 10 recipients for the fiscal 2025. Yeah. So Amazon had 14,000, Tata had 5,000, Microsoft had 5,000, Meta had 5,000, Apple had 4,000, Google had 4,000, Cognizant had 2,000, JP Morgan had 2,500, Walmart had 2,300, and Deloitte had 2,300. Think about that number of technology employees. And the other thing to be thinking about too, like with your job, remember you work as part of a team. You work as part of a team, right? You know the only thing worse than working for an H1B visa? Eli, you don't understand. These AIs, these actual Indians, they're so horrible to work under. Yeah, you know the only thing that's worse than working under a horrible Indian? Yeah, when all those Indians get chucked the fuck out of the country and your company doesn't need your services anymore, right? Because think about that, right? 14,000. Think about all of these employees, and all of these companies have to decide whether it is worth continuing this program up. And now to be clear, as I've said before, I believe in isolation, right? The weird part about all this kind of stuff is, right, Trump is such a ham-handed piece of crap, senile old loser cracked up on Diet Coke. The issue is a lot of the overarching concepts I actually agree with, right? I do believe we should get out of NATO. I do believe we should be more isolationist. I do believe that we should reshore. The issue is how quickly all of this is being done, and that the companies have to figure out exactly what they're going to do. So we've had this system in place. Like it or hate it, we have had this system in place for decades. Businesses have been set up to do business this way for decades. And overnight, basically the concept, the principle that they've been working under has changed massively. And so now all of these decision makers in business have to figure out what they're going to do next. Do they feel comfortable spinning up a new data center here in the United States? Do they feel comfortable, right, ramping up a new department? Do they feel comfortable giving the green light for new large projects and that type of thing when they're not sure whether or not they'll be able to get those employees into the United States or not? And again, with the whole question of reshoring or outsourcing or that type of deal, right? If the world is connected by fiber lines, it starts to make a lot more sense to rent more space in Bangalore and simply have your Indian employees stay there than ship them all the way to the United States. All right. Let's see. A quote, President Trump promised to put American workers first, and this common sense action does just that by discouraging companies from spamming the system and driving down wages. Again, if it was a tiered system that ratcheted up over the next decade, fine. It is what it is. Doing this overnight is atrocious policy. Taylor Rogers, a White House spokeswoman, told CNBC, quote, it also gives certainty to American businesses who actually want to bring high-skilled workers to our great country, but have been trampled on by the abuses of the system. It gives certainty if you believe in the rantings of a senile old loser madman in the White House. If you trust Trump to stick by his guns, it gives you certainty. But we all know that's a crock of crap. So again, what will this fee be? In 2 months, in 5 months, in 6 months? Will it go to $150,000? Will it go to $500,000? Will it go to $5,000? Who the hell knows? Because it's not going through the legislative process. So it is not giving anybody certainty. You cannot trust Trump. Trump has proven, right? Taco Man has proven you cannot trust his diktats. So it does not actually give certainty. And so, yeah, that is where we are currently at. What will happen with the H1B visas and what will happen with the United States' place in the technology world over the next decade. It will be curious to see, right? There's this idea, you get rid of the H1B visas, and then obviously all these Americans will get hired. And the question is that actually true? Is that actually true? Will the companies get rid of the H1B visas? And one of the things to be thinking about with a lot of these technology companies right now is that they are trying to dump employees, right? They're dumping massive numbers of employees, right? Microsoft dumped 16,000 employees. Amazon dumped 10, 20,000 employees. Meta dumped 20,000 employees, right? These companies are dumping employees anyway. So if they're no longer able to bring H1B visas in, is that an out for them to be able to drop their head count that has good optics, right? When they lay off people, when they fire people, that's bad optics for the investors. If they simply don't hire people, that doesn't really get seen. That doesn't get recorded anywhere, really, right? If people quit, that doesn't really get recorded anywhere. If the government makes the H-1B visa program more difficult, does that make it easier for these companies to go, oops, I guess we don't need those 14,000 employees. Less Indians or whatever being hired, and Americans are not necessarily getting hired to be put back into the positions. The other thing to be thinking about, or do they simply invest more in overseas areas, more into India, more into Cambodia, more into Vietnam, more into South America and South Africa and that type of thing. If you simply got a fiber line connecting the offices, does it make more sense to start redefining how your management and how your workflows work within your organization? And then for the larger world, again, the big question is, does it make sense to really start decoupling from the United States? Does it make sense to really hook your ship or whatever, hook your career to what the United States is doing? With all the policies that we're putting out there, with everything that we're currently doing, we are making it clear you should be subservient to us. We believe we are superior. You are fucking inferior. If you don't get on your knees and grovel, we will punish you. Is that the type of relationship that you want to have? Especially in the modern world with things China's doing, a lot of places, other places are doing. Does that make you feel comfortable? And where does that put us as Americans going into the future? It's interesting with this whole thing about basically outsourcing low value work, right? The idea that you outsource the low value work and then you focus more on the higher value work. Are we basically eliminating all those people, quote unquote, taking the low value jobs, but by them taking the low value jobs, it becomes more difficult to hire and retain the high value employees? I don't know. It's going to be, it will be very curious to see what goes on. But I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be bad for the tech sector, right? This coming through so quickly, it only puts far more uncertainty onto our technology companies. It puts far more uncertainty onto the managers, onto the people that are making the decisions to invest and to hire and do that type of thing. And when there's uncertainty, basically people don't do anything, right? Why am I going to sign a 5 or 10 year contract when I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like? I am going to hold off. What happens when that starts occurring at scale? So anyways, there you go. What do you think? What do you think about the senile old loser in the White House passing these diktats, writing these diktats, based off of whatever he currently feels at the moment? What do you think about a $100,000 fee on H-1B visas? And even if you think, right, on the long term, That's the direction we should be going, right? That's an argument there. Do you think it makes sense for him to basically drop this so quickly for companies to try to figure out what the hell to do? Do you think this is going to be better for the tech sector in the United States, or are you like me and actually think it's going to be pretty damn damaging? I don't know. Put your thoughts. Put your thoughts down below. Give us a thumbs up. Give us a thumbs down. Tell me I'm awesome. Tell me I'm a moron. Just do it down there in the comment section like a big dog. Be like one of those GOP Senator alpha dogs and write things in the comment section while you don't do your actual fucking job that the taxpayers are paying you to do. Anyways, I will remind you, SiliconDojo.com. We are kind of sort of back, baby. Durham, North Carolina. The next couple of weeks, we are going to be having a class on artificial intelligence with Ollama, basically building AI systems using Ollama and other technologies. So we are going to be going to American Underground in Durham, North Carolina. So if you go to SiliconDojo.com, become a member of SiliconDojo.com. And I'll send out a newsletter when that has been scheduled. We also do fireside chats and that type of thing. So if you have not joined SiliconDojo.com, join SiliconDojo.com. And with that, see y'all later.